Monday, November 7th. I swam all the way from Gingerland, peeped out just moments ago, and our guest was wading her way through the parking lot in water boots and umbrella. But JD Keynes is in the house, and as you know, there is never a dull moment with her. We've come to work, whether it's sun or rain, because we know an election is just around the corner. Welcome, JD. Thank you so much for getting here despite the inclement weather, and I certainly hope that you've been taking opportunity with all the walking exercise available through Pink Lily, and of course just this past Saturday the credit union. I hope you're fit and ready and in fighting form for the upcoming local elections.
Good evening, Mr. Manners. What an introduction. And good evening to everyone who's listening to the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse, Vaughan Radio. It's always a pleasure to be here on Vaughan Radio, particularly on a Monday evening where we get 90 minutes to speak with you about the Nevis Reformation Party's plans of moving the island of Nevis forward. And that's exactly what I'll be doing this evening, with special focus on the constituency of Nevis 1, Charlestown, St. Paul, and I maintain that I am number one in number one. But before we get into all of the exciting things that we're going to talk about this evening, allow me to offer condolences to the family of Mr. Stephen Jones of Hamilton in Nevis. Mr. Jones is someone who many of us know very well. I particularly know Mr. Jones because we are both Anglicans, and not only are we Anglicans, but we are members of the St. Paul's Anglican Church. Mr. Jones was very active in our church. He's someone who, or he was rather someone who, you know, you can go to for advice as it relates to the operations of the church and the whole Anglican, how Anglicanism functions. And so he will be dearly missed, and so I want to offer condolences to his entire family, particularly his wife and his children, grandchildren, and to his siblings, anyone who mourns the loss of Mr. Jones. It's a difficult time for us in St. Paul's, the St. Paul's Anglican Church, so I offer condolences to the congregation, everyone who Mr. Jones worked with, any and everyone who would be feeling the effects of his untimely passing. So condolences to the entire family and friend circle rather of Mr. Stephen Jones. On a more positive note, I want to wish Honorable Cleone Stapleton Simmons all the very best in Taiwan. As you know, she's part of the Federation's delegation to Taiwan, and so she departed Nevis on the weekend, and I already see her there looking as sharp as ever, looking good, Cleone.
Yeah, she does.
And I know she's learning all that she can, and you know, just taking in the opportunity, taking in the atmosphere and all things Taiwan. Taiwan is a really beautiful place, and its culture really makes us reflect and really kind of gives us an eye-opener, because you know, we take many things for granted, or we are limited in many cases to the size of our island or where we travel to. And so when you go to a place as far as Taiwan, you get to see things from a different perspective, and you get a greater appreciation for certain things. So I am encouraging Cleone, Honorable Cleone Stapleton Simmons, to enjoy yourself in Taiwan, learn as much as you can, and see what ideas you can bring back to the people of Nevis, because we know that you soon and very soon will be in government as not just a member of Parliament, but as a member of the Nevis Island administration, and we will need all of your ideas to help to move the island of Nevis forward.
Stick a pen there, and JD, let me join you in extending condolences to the Jones family. Of course, Mr. Jones, a long-standing civil servant, worked in many areas of government, and I must say gone too soon. So to Marlise, Anthony, all the brothers, sisters, and of course his children,
yes.
we extend the deepest sympathy. You referred to Cleone being in Taiwan. It's about 25 minutes to 9 in Taiwan Tuesday morning. So
Yes,
I believe
yeah,
they're
yeah.
up and maybe listening to us. So let's wish the delegation well. We've seen some videos of their arrival in Taipei International Airport. And of course, on Peloton bikes today. Did you see that, JD?
I saw Mr. Manners.
Yeah, the Prime Minister, the Premier, and the Foreign Affairs Minister, former Prime Minister Denzel Douglas. I see people making fun of it. Somebody like John L. Powell, for instance, saying that he got heckled when he went to Dubai and rode camels. But these guys are riding bikes. But just in case people don't know what Peloton bikes are, they are an exercise facility which is plugged into the internet. And probably what the Taiwanese, who are absolutely good hosts, were doing was trying to get them to get their land legs back. JD, you've been to Taiwan. You go past the international date line, which we learned in school. It's
Yes,
a long,
yes.
long way.
Yes, it is.
And of course, you going and coming, you lose and gain hours. And so it's been a long trip. So let's not make fun of our delegation there. They're just trying to get their land legs back. And as you said, I hope they're there to do some serious business, and Cleone in particular representing us well, because we know that others have said in previous dispensations that going to distant lands or lands which we have diplomatic relations with is not about bringing back anything. But we hope this delegation, which I think is about 9 strong, will definitely reap benefits for St. Kitts and Nevis.
It's Mr. Manners, and as I continue with my greetings, I want to commend Mr. Lawston Percival, who is from St. Kitts. I know him as Officer Percival. So Mr. Percival recently traveled over here to Nevis and hosted a one-day or a part of a day's workshop, if for want of a better term, where he was teaching children how to iron. According to Mr. Percival, he thinks that he has very good ironing skills, and so he wanted to pass that on to children, and I thought it was an excellent initiative. He did it on the island of St. Kitts, and the feedback was so good that he wanted to mirror it here on Nevis. And so I was able to, in some small way, contribute to the cause, and for me it's about the impact. I tell people all the time, I may not be able to give to the big events and the flashy shows and, you know, those kinds of events. Not saying there's anything wrong with them, but I like where I can see the impact. And so it felt really good to see children learning to iron, something that many of us would have to do at some point in time. And so it was a great exercise by Officer Percival. He held it here nearby at the Alberta Payne Community Center, and he promised to be back with that and other workshops. So kudos to him, and to anyone else who has an idea, something that can uplift particularly our young people and help to advance them. It could be a skill, it could be something with academics, whatever it is, feel free to share, because that is what it's all about, building each other up. So kudos to Officer Percival. Now I want to, before we go any further, let you know, if you don't know already, that the Nevis Reformation Party is having a series of town halls. We've had 2 to date. We started in number 1 in my constituency, Nevis 1 Charlestown, at the Credit Union Conference Room, and that was a really good town hall where we heard lots of questions from residents of the area, and there are some persons who reached out to me after and gave positive feedback, and they too asked some questions, and so I was happy about that. Then we moved over to the Franklin Brown Community Center, and we were able to have a town hall there where Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, NRP's party leader, took the lead on that one. tomorrow, last week we took a break, so tomorrow we'll be in Gingerland for a town hall meeting at the Anglican schoolroom featuring Rohan Isles. All of the candidates will be there, well, minus Cleon, Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons, because as I just mentioned, she's overseas, but the other candidates will be there to lend support to Rohan. And then we will go to constituency number 2, which is St. John, and we will lend support. That's Rohan, Cleon, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, and myself will lend support to Dr. Patricia Bartlett as she speaks to the people of her constituency. So please come out and attend the town halls. These are activities for us to hear from you. You've been hearing from us. We want to hear from you. So I am encouraging everyone to attend these town halls. We haven't been streaming the exercises because we wanted persons to physically come. I know that we've gotten comfortable in staying at home and listening to the town halls or the public meetings via the World Wide Web, but we still also don't want to lose that personal touch where you get to engage your candidates and your next government, I might add. And so please come out to the town halls and ask your questions. Finally, I don't know if you know already, but I am letting you know now that on Friday, the Nevis Reformation Party will be hosting a peaceful protest and rally in Charlestown constituency number 1. We will assemble at the electoral office, in the parking lot of the electoral office, and we will begin there. And then we will make our way down to the DR Walwyn Plaza, Mr. Manners, and we will have a rally. You see, people of Nevis, the time has come for us to really show you. We've been talking about it on the radio, on the political platform, but we are showing you that we are willing to stand up for you. So whether it is 1 or 100, we will gather at the electoral office this coming Friday from about 3:30. And we will be protesting against all of the ills that are happening, starting first with lots of irregularities happening at the electoral office. We've been hearing the stories, and guess what? We have to let the persons responsible know that we know what you're doing and we will not stand for it. We demand free and fair elections, which will be coming up next month. We demand free and fair elections because no longer will the CCM steal an election from the Nevis Reformation Party. And we want the people of Nevis to understand that it is just as much your right as it is my right to fight for what is in fact right. So that's this coming Friday at the electoral office parking lot right there on Chapel Street. Please gather. It doesn't matter the color that you're wearing. Come on out. You can bring your placards. We'll have some as well. Come on out and let's fight to save Nevis. That's the name of the peaceful protest and rally. Save Nevis, because that is in fact what we have to do. Save Nevis.
I'm glad to hear that. And I also like the starting point. Now, I've said many times on this program that I'm not happy with the way things happened after the elections. I believe that when an election is over, there should be a debriefing. That we should look at how the election was conducted. We have heard about irregularities from callers on this show. The past supervisor, we heard, resigned. And then we heard there was a brand new person. And I got a sense that the government was trying to sneak this one up on us. In fact, several persons have called me or said to me that they heard, can't be substantiated, that the Premier of Nevis has been asking the Prime Minister to allow the past supervisor of election to help with this election. Now, I think all of those things could be avoided if we do this thing properly. The head of the OECS mission, Bruce Golding, a former Prime Minister of Jamaica, said in his report that they have been writing the same thing over and over again since 2010 with no redress. And I really feel that attention should be shown to the electoral office. We expect the people, the minister responsible to address us because this election is sooner than we think. And so I'm happy to hear that the NRP is mobilizing. And I want to say to everybody out there, come out and support. Last week I struggled for a quote which the great Victor Martin used on his campaign trail. Somebody sent it to me, but of course my phone's off. And I saw it after the program. It goes something like this: a general is a general because of his soldiers. And so J.D. Keynes is the general of Charlestown, St. Paul's, Nevis 1, and we expect people all across the country to rally to your candidates, because as J.D. said, an election is upon us and nobody must be allowed to steal this one.
Correct. Mr. Manners, and as we segue into some of the things that I want to talk about this evening, I can't tell people enough of the importance of going out to vote. Too many of our people are staying at home on election day, then complaining about the results. I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand the concerns. Many of you are saying, man, I take enough word for NRP. I support CCM, and then I treat me good. You know, so these are some of your concerns. Or, I don't think my vote is enough. My vote ain't gonna make a difference. The reality is, you never know. And if 6 people stay at home and say the same thing, or 60 people stay at home and say the same thing, or 600 people stay at home and say the same thing, we realize that we have a problem. And so I am pleading with the people of Nevis, particularly those of Nevis 1, to exercise your franchise in the upcoming elections. It is important that you go out and vote. As long as you are of voting age and you are duly registered, please go out and vote. It makes no sense to sit at home, stay away from the polls, and then complain after the results. A year, 2 years down the line, when you realize that you're not seeing anything progressive, it makes no sense. Nobody has to know who you voted for. Nobody should know who you voted for. Just go out and exercise your franchise. And many of you, if you are honest with yourselves, you will say that this present administration is not performing. And I maintain, if this administration has proven time and time again that it is inept, it is not performing, it is only fear to give someone else a chance. And if it is that we go out there, I can speak for myself. If I go out there, you elect me to serve you as your member of parliament, and I don't deliver for you, don't send me back a second time. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't even come back and ask you for a second chance. That is how I am. But I believe that when you look at the ticket that exists right now, I am the better choice for the people of Nevis 1. I was the better choice for the people of Nevis 1 when I came on the scene and I was launched. And I maintain I am still the better choice for the people of Nevis 1, because not only do I have the ideas, I am willing to execute, I get along with people, and I am no easy walkover. And so you know that when you elect Keynes, it will be nothing but gains.
Well, you know, it's people of Nevis don't have to look too far. Just look at 2022, where a government which told you just 2 short years ago that you should send them to St. Kitts to represent them. And in August of this year, August 5th, they turned in the government. They showed that they didn't want to represent you. Correct. Sending us back to the polls 3 years early. The people in St. Kitts did what they had to do and placed the 3 Nevis members into opposition. And then look at what's happening now. We're scrambling for a space to find another election. And so Nevis will go down on record for the first time in its 39 years as part of an independent nation, where we will have 2 elections 4 months apart. That's costly. It has caused disruption, and it has made us lose a lot of time where we should be focusing on development. So apart from the fact that NRP has the better candidates and the better idea, these guys have shown that they have no respect for your vote, they have no respect for governance, and they have squandered it all. I don't think Nevisians need to look further.
That is so correct, Mr. Manners. But you know, what is so ironic, and I think exactly how you think, but what is so ironic is that you would find that people will tell you, you don't have to tell them, they will tell you all that this administration is doing wrong. They will tell you all the areas in which they have failed, but they still need you to prove that you can do better. And while I have a slightly different opinion, I respect that opinion. And so I am saying, give me an opportunity to prove that I can do better. And I know that I am already proving that I can do better, because many of the things that you see happening now only happened because JD started talking. It's only now that your representative realize or remembers that you exist. It's only now that they realize that the young men in Quadacode and Ramsbury were without employment. And it's only now, when an election is coming, that you can find employment, temporary as it may be, for them to do. And don't get me wrong, I am not telling anybody not to take any employment, because work is work, and as long as you are able to legally feed your family, that is what matters. However, what about a representative who can help you to get a job that is sustainable, that you are not dependent on me for a every 3-month job, or a job only when there is an election? What about a job that you can sustain yourself and your family, and you don't have to turn around and come to me and beg me to help you with basic necessities? That is what I am talking about. You cannot continue, we cannot continue to reward people who put us in a bad situation and then appear to come back and rescue us from that bad situation. They are who put us there. So for example, when you were crying out about the surcharge and how much it is costing the people of Nevis, no one heard you but the NRP. They ignored you. It was the NRP that came forward and said, no, this is too much and something must be done. And on the eve of an election is when we recognize that something could be done. Well, how we didn't know that something could be done all the time? How we didn't know that people were struggling? And that is what I am talking about. And so I need the people of Nevis 1 to ensure that we send a strong message to the Concerned Citizens Movement that you are no longer concerned about us and people don't matter more to you. We are trying to talk about gains, and that can only happen with JD Keynes. Mr. Manners, I am serious, I am passionate, and I am ready for change. I am ready to work, Mr. Manners, for the people of Nevis 1, because we deserve better.
Nevis definitely deserve better. I found it so ironic as the delegation headed off to Taiwan on Saturday, and we think that they're looking further afield and looking for benefits for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And what do you get for them from the Premier? That the day after he returns, they're launching a candidate in constituency number 5. All he's concerned, he says, is about all 5 for we. But we saw already, we gave them all 3 before and they didn't know what to do with it. This is about Nevis. We want to make sure that when we go into 2023, we give our opportunity, our country, an opportunity for renewal. Change must come. You know why? Because for the CCM, people don't matter anymore. Listen, we can have 1,000 reasons why we should rid ourselves of the CCM. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we want you to join us. Give us at least one reason why Nevis should rid itself of the CCM and bring on the NRP. Change must come.
But the economy is broken. government stick, and the opposition come and take a seat. The debt is high and employment's low, and it's the poor people who taking the blow. I say we tired, we need a revolution. We just can't depend on vaccination. I say we tired, time to pick we self off the floor. Just remember people matter more. So when you hear them talking bull on the radio, people used to matter more. Whether you red, blue, orange or yellow, people used to matter more. But when they needed us for last election, we were always the first option. But now they in and they comfortable. People don't matter no more. Why? Some people may not like this, but people used to matter more. RTC and them made a slogan out of it. People used to matter more.
And we're back. Prime Minister Roosevelt's carrot of Dominica beat him to the punch last night, announcing a snap election for December 6th. You know I have a thing about these snap elections. Here in St. Kitts Nevis, we had a unity government. Said for 7 years we will have fixed date elections. That's another score on which they failed us. But they're scrambling for a date, and we know that they're searching for one desperately before the end of the year. J.D. Keynes, you're ready for the fight? Tell us some of the plans you've got for St. Paul's, Nevis 1.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manners. It's very important that not only do I point out what the current representative and the current administration is not doing for the people of Nevis, but that I share with you what I will do for the people of Nevis, and specifically the people of Nevis 1. So I wanted to pay extra special attention as I give you just a snapshot of some of my plans for the St. Paul's constituency. And these plans aren't all my ideas, to be honest. These plans came out of house-to-house conversations. These plans came out of surveys. These plans came out of telephone conversations. These plans came out of meetings on the block, in the bars. These plans are the plans of the people of Nevis 1. And if after I speak tonight you have some additional plans that you think should be incorporated to move the constituency of Nevis 1 and the island of Nevis generally forward, I welcome them. So let's start with education and training. And like I said, this is a snapshot. We recognize right now that we have the Nevis Sixth Form College, which we are so grateful for. It has been around since the 1980s, if I'm not mistaken. And we believe it is time for us to build on what we have. We are happy that we have it. It exists and it's doing a good job. But it is time for us to go outside of the box. And so no longer are we going to have just a Nevis Sixth Form College. It is the vision of the Nevis Reformation Party. It is my vision, certainly, for the people of Nevis to have a community college where we can talk about the Nevis Sixth Form College being featured, where we can also have classes, evening classes for adults, and we can take it a step further because it was actually done in the 90s when we weren't as technologically advanced as we are now. So it certainly can be done now, where our people can benefit from virtual learning with universities further afield. These are just some of the things that we believe can happen in a community college. It is time for us to look out for our people. It is not everyone who is able to travel to the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, for example. It is not everyone who is able to travel overseas, for example. We recognize the need. We recognize that some people just want an opportunity, and we will do what we can to bring this to reality. And so that is the expansion of the Nevis Sixth Form College to include a community college. We also want to offer some relief to our teachers and make their work more meaningful. As a parent, and a parent of a fairly young child, and also someone who has served as a tutor for some time, I recognize that our teachers, many of our teachers are doing a great job. They are doing the best they can with the resources that they have, with the situation, the cards that they've been dealt. There is room for improvement, but the policy direction must come from the top. And one of the things we recognize, there are teachers responsible for classrooms and responsible for children who are at varying levels. So for example, you have a teacher who is responsible for, let's say, 15 children, and that teacher has maybe 5 children who are way up here. They are doing excellent work. They totally grasp the concepts.
JD, hold your thought. Whenever you're here, it gets hot up in here. Good evening, caller. Oh, we have lost that caller. Please call back. We daily want to hear from you.
Yes. And so we recognize that a teacher may have 5 students of 15 who are way up here, as we say locally. They're grasping all of the concepts. They're doing really well. There isn't necessarily a middle ground. You have now 10 children who are way down there, or even if you have a middle ground, you still have a heavy emphasis, or a heavy portion rather, of the children being below where they should be. And that is a lot for a teacher. It is very difficult, almost impossible, for that single teacher with a life, with a family sometimes, to reach every single student. And especially when some of the parents themselves are struggling, because some of us just don't have the patience and some of us just don't know what to do. And so we believe that we should offer some assistance to the teachers by giving them teachers' aids.
JD, your caller is back. Caller, welcome. You're the first on tonight's edition of Your Voice with the NRP.
To you all.
Yes, good
Good
evening.
evening.
We're doing well.
Okay. What I call this right now, I would like to know if you don't have any exercise fears like them, what I see. 15 members up in Taiwan exercising. I would like to know if they don't have any down here. And if they don't have none, they could beg the Taiwanese to come and bring them down here. They don't have to wait until they go abroad to go exercise. That's what they are here for. So much of them. And when they don't get any country inward, and they are trying to fool. I know the senior, he will sleep with his deadly self just to get money. And I will let you know what how we get it. That's it. We got it degree because he's a man loves to be on Facebook and TV and all about the stuff, pictures, but he ain't seen no pictures of him getting he got correct. So I want to know how he get it, if he bought it or what not. You
Okay.
have a pleasant
Okay.
evening.
Thank you very much.
The caller making a bit slight of the fact that our leaders are in the Asian Tiger of Taiwan exercising. I addressed that earlier, and a query about the Premier's doctorate.
And I'll just quickly comment and say, I feel it and I understand the passion of us as Nigerians, because we're really frustrated, and sometimes when we look around and we see certain things happening, we get annoyed, we get angry, because we know that for many of us, it's like our life is at stake, our children's futures are at stake, and so we really get annoyed when we see certain things happening. But I want you to take out that frustration at the polls.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the polls and vote. That is where it's going to matter most. So it is not enough to sit and talk. Go to the polls and ensure that you vote, that your children vote, your husband and your wives vote. Anybody who you have some interaction with, go to the polls and they vote, and not just vote, but they vote for the Nevis Reformation Party. Because when we do things, we will ensure that we keep you always in focus. Mr. Manners, I was making the point that we want to offer some assistance to the teachers. I said teachers aid, but what I meant to say is teaching assistance, because we realize that the teachers can be doing a lot more if they get some assistance.
It's going to be busy tonight. We've got another caller. Welcome, caller. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Your Voice with the NRP. I think you're listening to your radio.
Good night.
Oh,
Good night, good
Now
night.
we're hearing you.
Yeah, okay. Look here. Good night.
Yes, good night. We're
Okay,
listening. Go ahead.
The same lady there, she was, I wonder if she was around when Tim Daniel was running and happy.
You're talking about our guest tonight?
Because
Mm-hmm.
huh?
Yes, go ahead.
The same thing what she talking about what CCM now do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And happy used to do it. Man, hey, put things together.
Uh-huh.
Because you know the old system, so this is new and happy now.
We certainly have new candidates, if that's what you're asking. I, for one, am a new candidate, and I am attempting tonight to lay out the plans that I have for the people of St. Paul, showing where I can make a difference and where the party that I support, the Nevis Reformation Party, can make a difference. But we can only do that with your support.
Okay, thank you.
Stop down CCM because they're doing well.
And nothing is wrong with that. And I believe that the Nevis Reformation Party can do even better. So I'm not calling down CCM. Rather, I am boosting the NRP. And I'm really hoping that you can give us an opportunity and you can allow us to prove to you that we can do better. CCM is doing well now, as you say. Imagine the better that can come under NRP. So I thank you so much for your contribution, caller.
Thank you, caller. As they say, good, better, best. Yes, JD.
Yes, so Mr. Manners, so I mentioned that I spoke about the expansion of the Navy Sixth Form College to make it a community college, as well as having assistant teachers. And I believe this will not only provide assistance for our teachers, but it would also create employment, Mr. Manners. And the intention is that these persons will come in, be assistant teachers, and then we can get them into being full-time teachers, regular teachers. And so we always have that stock. We always have that stock of quality teachers, and not just a place where people go because there's nowhere else to go. You will be trained, and I think it can only be down to the benefit of the children and of the teaching fraternity. Another thing that we want to push in the area of education and training is the opportunity for skills training, Mr. Manners. We recognize, and we are saying, the NRP has said all along, that it is not everyone who wants to go to a 4-year university or a 3-year university, a liberal arts college. There are some persons who have certain skills or interest in certain skills that they want to seek employment in, and we welcome that. We recognize that it takes different people and different skill sets to run an economy, to make sure that we have a successful economy, and we want to help people get to that point. So we are willing to bring back the training courses for 3 months and 6 months, etc., where our people can be certified in certain skills. That way they can be self-sustainable. The idea is to make you self-sustainable. We do not want you to be out here begging politicians for the basic necessities. It's almost as if some of us as politicians take pride in people coming to us and having to beg. That's not who we are as a people. But that is what we have been diminished to. And I want to change that. And so I say that the NRP will bring back quality, emphasis on quality, skills training programs to get you certified so that you can provide for yourself and your families. Mr. Manners, what about opportunities for tertiary level education? I told someone just today, I believe it is important for me to pay it forward. There are people before me who put certain things in place so that I can live fairly comfortably right now. I think it is important for me to do the same for somebody else. So it is time for me to pay it forward. It was the Nevis Reformation Party that offered me a partial scholarship to pursue my undergraduate degree at the University of the Virgin Islands. They know that I was a poor woman. They know that I was a young girl who probably may not have gotten the opportunity right away. And so they helped me to get to that point. Yes, I had a lot of it to do on my own, but they helped me, and I appreciate that help to this day. And so I want to be able to help somebody else get that opportunity or an even better opportunity. I'll stick up in here and mention that just recently, representatives of my alma mater, the University of the Virgin Islands, were in the Federation, and they were talking about different initiatives. And of course, I can't be around my UVI people and not talk Nevis. When I was at UVI, I actually went there having graduated from the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College. I didn't go to the Nevis Sixth Form College because the subjects that I wanted to do were against each other at the time. So I went to the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College. But I applied to UVI independently. When I got there, I met people, you know, a lot of them from St. Kitts. Those from Nevis I knew already, so we were already good. I met some persons and I recognized that Kittitians who attended the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College were benefiting from a program that persons on Nevis weren't benefiting from because it had not extended to the Nevis Sixth Form College. And even me, who attended the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, but was on a vision, and so it slipped them. So I did not get the benefit right away. But you know me and this mouth, I got dark. Yes. And so I ensured that I was able to benefit. And not only did I do that, when I ran for student government president, I said, no, I need the people of Nevis to benefit from this as well. The people of the Nevis Sixth Form College. And Dr. Hall, the current president of UVI, he can tell you that there were many meetings to ensure that this happened. And then they came to the island of Nevis and met with former Premier Parry and others of his cabinet to get this thing in motion. And I talk about it because I am quite proud of that. Because now the people of Nevis are benefiting because of that work. So imagine if I did that as an ordinary individual, a civil servant, what I can do for you as a member of parliament, as your representative, Mr. Manners. So we want to ensure that there are opportunities for tertiary level education. So that's education and training in a nutshell. There are more, but I'm just focusing on a few. Let's talk social and community development. Mr. Manners, this idea still falls in education to some extent because it involves our children. I recognize, because I have an upcoming athlete, that when it's time for sports...
hold your thought there. We've got another caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Mr. Manners.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening to Lady J.D. Kane.
Hi, good evening.
How are you guys doing tonight?
We're great.
I hope you can hear me. It's raining very hard where I am.
Yes, we're hearing you clearly.
Okay. In the past, we saw where Dr. Daniel made contact with, I believe it was a colleges out of
Florida. Miami-Dade was one of them. I think.
Working together to the benefit of Navision students. As a matter of fact, I think I wasn't living here at the time, but I think they actually came here at one point and did classes here.
And then students would go up to Florida as well. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead. We're listening.
Okay. We have not heard or seen anything like that in the recent times. As a matter of fact, we keep seeing our young people get encouraged to go to far, far away places. And I've always wondered why we have not been able to get scholarships from some of the universities in the United States, or even from UVI. JD, is anything like that being worked on right now?
Yes, definitely. As a matter of fact, that was one of the things that was discussed when we had our most recent meeting, how we can ensure that persons get scholarships. But I will tell you, part of the program that I spoke about just moments before you called actually involves a significant a significant discount. Yes, involves a significant discount when it comes to tuition. So rather than paying the full rate as an ordinary out of state student, because of the memorandum of understanding that I spoke about, persons from St. Kitts and Nevis who attended both the CFBC and now the Nevis Sixth Form College pay significantly less. So that's in a way a partial scholarship. But yes, the other opportunities were discussed to see how best we can ensure that our people are able to benefit from education at UVI and other close institutions.
One of the eye-opening things for me in my experience with my son going off to school was the fact that once he started to seriously pursue getting into a school in the United States, he was able to get grants and all kinds of different things afforded to him. Yes, he's an American-born child, but then so are many of our young people here. And I've always wondered if parents here are aware of that, and how can we go about assisting our young people. He was able to get out of college with a very little of a loan to pay back because of the fact that he used, and the school, let me say, encouraged him and supported him in using whatever opportunities were available to him, even though he had never attended school he'd never been educated in the United States. And so those are some of the things that we need to work with our parents on and our young people to encourage them. Have a good night. I'll continue listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very, very good points. Very good points. And you can see she's speaking to the bread and butter issues. As parents, we want better for our children, and we understand that not everyone is able to afford doing certain things. So thank you so much for that, caller, and we'll definitely take those into consideration. So, Mr. Manners, I was telling you that this next initiative falls under social and community development, and in a way it can be twinned with education, because I recognize that whenever it's time for sports, it's the exciting sports term, these schools, particularly my school, we go above and beyond to ensure that our children are ready. We want to be responsible for even their meals, and so many of the children get breakfast once you're an athlete and you're training. And I can tell, it's obvious, Mr. Manners, that some of these children are so grateful because this is not what they're accustomed to. And I believe that every single child should get good breakfast, Mr. Manners. It doesn't matter your parents' situation. It doesn't matter what your circumstance is. You should be getting a proper breakfast. And I want to, as your next representative, have a breakfast program for the children at Charlestown Primary School, the children in St. Paul, Mr. Manners, because no child should have to suffer because the parent is having a hard time. And yes, many of us can criticize and say, oh, that is the parents' responsibility, we are their priorities. Listen, unless you've been there, you don't understand. And I can tell you, I understand. And so I want to personally be responsible for a breakfast program for our children in Nevis 1, starting with the Charlestown Primary School, Mr. Manners.
That's a great idea. I know, for instance, that some people who work in the hotel industry mightn't be the case where they don't have it. But having to leave home early in the morning.
Exactly.
And they expect children to do that. And sometimes it's not done. And you know that if you don't have a full stomach and you didn't have a good meal, it can affect your ability to learn.
Correct.
So I find that a great initiative.
Thank you, Mr. Manners. Another thing that we want to do is to have some after-school programs. Mr. Manners, follow me for a second. And I hope the listeners are following me and really seeing how these are the bread and butter issues and how they can improve your quality of life. I hope the Bank of Nevis don't think that I'm giving them a free ad tonight. But we recognize that school starts at about 8:30 and school ends at about 3:30. Many parents are working until 4, 4:35, 6, It means that our children, some who are in primary school, it's not everyone who has an older sibling in secondary school. So our children are at home in many cases by themselves from 3:30 until mommy and daddy or sister or whomever comes home. Many of us say, oh, well, I did it when I was a child and I turned out fine. It does not mean that that is the way that it should go, Mr. Manners. Anything can happen during that time. And I don't want to be a reactive member of parliament. I want to be a proactive member of parliament. And so what I want to do is to ensure that there are after school programs where our children can be actively engaged after school. And let me tell you about the ripple effect that this has. One, it provides a safe space for children until their parents are able to care for them again. Two, it provides the children an opportunity to be doing something more, because it is not about academics all over again. You could be learning to iron. Like I mentioned earlier, the gentleman had a program where he was teaching children to iron. You could be learning how to tie a tie. You could be learning how to set a table. You could be learning how to knit. It could be sports. There are a number of things that we can be doing after school for our children, Mr. Manners. And that is one of the things that I want to see happen in the constituency of Nevis 1 St. Paul's. And I can go further. If everything doesn't happen at the school, because it is not everyone who goes to the Charlestown Primary School, if everything doesn't happen at the school, where can it happen? In our brand spanking new community center, which we deserve and we will get. Because, Mr. Manners, I don't know if you realize that Charlestown, St. Paul's is the only constituency on Nevis that is without a community center.
Fully aware.
And that is an insult to the people of Nevis 1, and we should be offended. We should be offended that representative after representative has come and we have not been given a community center. And it is not just about keeping parties in the community centers. That is where a lot of skills training can happen. That is where a lot of the after school programs can happen. And it can also serve as a source of revenue generation for the government, because you can rent out the facility. The reality is, what is good for St. John, St. George, St. James, St. Thomas must be good for the people of St. Paul's. And that is why I tell you, if you want gains, you have to vote for Keynes. So that's social and community development, Mr. Manners. Let's move now to housing and road, and let's say housing and infrastructural development. Mr. Manners, the houses that we have now are not affordable houses. Let's call a spade a spade. And it is time for us to get back to running the housing corporation the way that it should be run, where we are focusing on helping the people of Nevis. These houses should be affordable houses. And if you can't afford it, it is not affordable. The houses weren't intended for the bank managers, for example. The houses weren't intended for the permanent secretaries, for example. And I'm using these positions because I'm trying to make the point that it is not persons who are making significant salaries these houses were intended for. The houses were intended to the ordinary man and woman who may not be able to afford to go to the financial institution and get a big loan for a mortgage. And we need to get back to that. It's all well and good to have a nice house, because we do have some nice houses under the housing program. But what good is a nice house if you can't eat? What good is a nice house if every minute your electricity is turned off? And so we need to go back to making these houses affordable. And not only making them affordable, but it is time for us to re-energize and revamp and recreate. And it almost sounds like I'm talking about the independence theme. But the housing demand must match the needs of the people. The housing designs must match the needs of the people. And right now, we are telling you, these are the designs that exist and you must choose from these. But what happened to the single man, the bachelor, who wants a 1-bedroom house or a studio and he's comfortable with that? What if that is what the person wants? We need to ensure that we are tapping into people's needs. We cannot continue to just do the same thing because it worked before. Tap into the needs of the people now. It is not everyone who wants everything that the housing package offers. Some people want to start here and then build their way to there. Also, some persons want to go up. They don't necessarily want a one-story structure with a lot of land space. Some persons are comfortable with a smaller land space and they go up, because for some of us, we don't need a lot of yard space. We just want a comfortable home. So these are some of the things that we are talking about. Being able to meet the needs of the people through the housing program. Also, there are some persons who have houses currently, but they just need a little sprucing up, as we say locally. We want to tap into those persons as well. You don't necessarily have to leave your home in Craddock Road to go Gingerland to get a house. We are saying, let us work on your house in Craddock Road and help to improve your standard. Nothing is wrong with that. If you own your house, you own your land, let us work with you, Mr. Manners. And that is one of the things that we want to do in terms of housing. And like I tell you, this didn't come from me. This came from speaking to the people in the communities where they are talking about some of the challenges that they are having. The houses look good on the outside, but then when you look, they have this problem, that problem, that. No. I'm saying it's a great program, but it can only get better if you put your trust and your faith and your ex next to the Nevis Reformation Party. So, in a nutshell, that's what we want to do as it relates to housing. I also want to mention that our nurses in particular, and I speak specifically of the nurses tonight, have the opportunity to get houses through the Nevis Island Administration, which will be led by the Nevis Reformation Party, because we want to incentivize nurses, because we know that we need nurses. And we are saying many of our nurses want homes, but they can't afford to go to the commercial banks because maybe their debt service ratio is high, but they will pay. They will pay, but because of how the system works, and you know that I know how the system works, you know, it's a struggle for them. And we are saying, man, we could work out something with the nurses because we want more of you. And so we are telling you, because we want more of you, we are willing to incentivize you. And so rather than you having to go to the commercial banks and be turned down, come to us and we'll work out a system where your money is deducted every month. When you get your salary, your money is deducted. We would be fools not to ensure that we pay ourselves before we pay you, knowing that you owe us. And it is not that difficult. It just needs creativity. It just needs people with ideas. The reality is, there are some persons who have made it difficult for others. That is the reality. But we know we need nurses, and we know where their salaries are coming from, and so we are prepared to work with these nurses, Mr. Manners.
Now, you've made some very good points. The Nevis Housing and Land Corporation was, of course, a creature of the NRP in 1984. And Sim Daniel's idea was that Nevisians should have a piece of the rock, and at an affordable cost.
Correct.
The story is told of a meeting held at Hickman's, which was at that point in time a very desolate place, no water, no lighting. And Sim Daniel held a meeting and was telling Nevisians about making land available to them. And one person at the back very shyly put his hand up and said, well, Sim Daniel asked him, how much would you like to pay for land? And they said, 3,000? 3,000 sound good? And Sim Daniel said to his secretary, take that note. And it became $3,000 for half an acre. $6,000 for an acre. And that was replicated not only in Fotogills and Hickman's, but in places like Nisbet Settlement. So basically, we have kind of moved away from the mandate. And we definitely have to come back home to make sure that the Nevis Housing and Land Corporation is serving the needs of the people.
Yes.
And I know you want to get on to healthcare, but we'll take a break because that's a big area.
Yes.
We'll take a break, then we'll come right back.
But the economy is broken, the government stick. Can the opposition come and take a seat? The dead
people used to matter more. It doesn't happen anymore on Nevis. Now, coming out of the pandemic, the health sector was supposed to be our flagship. It hasn't quite worked out that way. Give us an update of where we are, the state of our healthcare sector, and the plans you have to enhance it.
Yes, Mr. Manners, thank you so much for that. And health is indeed a very big sector, and I think people tend to shy away from talking about healthcare, even though it is something that affects all of us. But I have been looking on at healthcare and where we are. I know we will never get to the point of perfection, simply because of the size of our island and the people, the number of people who we have living here. But there are things that we can do, and I'm going to share that in a minute. Mr. Manners, I forgot to mention one of the things that I really wanted to pinpoint as it relates to social and community development. Like I said, these aren't all, but I really wanted to pinpoint this one, and that is the incentive program for fathers. And let me tell you what I mean just quickly about this one. There will be some women who will say that is their job. That is their job. That is what they're supposed to do. And so they don't need any rewarding. But I have a different view. You see, I believe in order for us to get more men doing what they should be doing, let us recognize the ones who are doing great things. And so I want to see an incentive program in St. Paul's, in Nevis, one for fathers. And let me tell you what I mean. I want, when fathers are out here doing great things, contributing positively to society and raising their children, offering assistance the best way that they can, for them to reap some benefits. And so it means that we'll be partnering with the private sector in some cases to offer some incentives to fathers. It could be as simple as discounts at the hardware stores, Mr. Manners. It could be priority in terms of being on the list for housing, whatever it is. But we need, in my opinion, to be incentivizing the fathers, at least in my constituency, because I see many of them doing great things, and the others can play catch up when they realize that we are looking out for the fathers who are looking out for our children. So men, I got you covered too. Don't think it is all about the ladies. I got you covered too. I tell you, it's nothing but gains with canes.
That's a good thing. I can't remember what year it was, but during the Child Month parade, the focus was on fathers walking with their children. It ain't all bad fathers out there. No. There's some good ones.
Listen, sometimes I say, I wonder where some of these fathers just be telling the children. Light moment. You know, sometimes as a mother, you call the father and you say, listen, if you need to talk to your child. If you don't talk to your child, I go in station, I go in jail, because your child is your child. Talk to your child. And then they talk to the child, and then everything, the child is on cloud nine, and you wondering, but what they tell the child? Listen to mommy and I'm gonna buy you ice cream, because the child seem happy, but you know it's a serious situation. But whatever it is, they were able to get through in a way that you weren't able to get through, and so ultimately you're grateful. And so yes, we do have some great fathers, and I believe it is time for us to kind of shift the focus. Let us recognize those who are great, and hopefully those who know that they have fallen short will play catch up. That is what it's about. Mr. Manners, moving now to health care. Similar to the teachers, I believe that we can offer some assistance to the nurses in terms of assistants, nursing assistants. We've seen a lot of nursing assistants over the years, but it almost seems as if the emphasis is not there quite as much as before. We want people to be training all the way through. So you come into the system, and we expect that you start here, and then you move up to this, you move up to this, you move up to that. And I believe that that can happen in healthcare, because we recognize, as I said earlier, that we need additional nurses, Mr. Manners. And I have nothing against persons who have come from overseas, such as in the Philippines, to offer assistance to us. I thank you very much for your service. But I believe it is time for us to come up with a plan to ensure that we have nurses on the island of Nevis. We can't continue to depend on people to loan us their human resource. We need to ensure that we have our human resource in place, because at the end of the day, they can go back. They can choose to go back to home. Many of us always want to come back home. So we need to ensure that we have our people equipped and in place to take care of their own people, their peers. So we want some nursing assistants, some nursing attendants, and we want the community health workers program at the community health center level. Mr. Manners, right now I don't know how many realize, but we are in a serious situation when it comes to community health workers. We do not have a lot of community health workers. We do not have a lot of nurses working at the community centers who are under retirement age. The majority are of retirement age, and they are really doing us a favor, Mr. Manners, because little do you know, they are not being paid for the work that they are doing. They are being paid their pension, which has been earned, and a little bit of what their salary ought to be. Now, I maintain if I am doing this work, I should get paid for it. I already worked for that pension. It is unfair what we are doing, especially in a system where we have government ministers who are bringing in thousands and thousands of dollars every month. It is unfair because all of us has to rely on a nurse. It is totally unfair, and so we need to ensure that we have people at that level who can carry out the work. If all of those nurses of retirement age get up tomorrow and say, I am not coming back, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So really and truly, they are granting us a favor, Mr. Manners. Another thing, we need to look at the subject areas, when we look at the nursing program, there are certain subject areas that are needed to enter the program. Why you realize that this is a difficulty for some persons. So what are we doing about it? We need to be proactive and not reactive. If you realize that people are coming into nursing profession but they are missing certain subjects, then we need to reach them at the school level, Mr. Manners. We need to reach them at the school level. These things aren't difficult, but you have to be visionary in order to come up with these things. And so that is why I believe that it is the Nevis Reformation Party and only the Nevis Reformation Party that's going to be able to move us forward in that regard. Let's talk about the health centers. I can speak of the health center in Charleston, and I say it all the time. The health center looks the same today as it looked when I was a child. If you ain't careful, it's the same posters on the wall for the most part, Mr. Manners. The health center in the capital city of Charleston needs to be upgraded. It needs to be upgraded. And this is one of the things that the NRP will do for the people of Nevis. Mr. Manners, it is not everything that will be done right away, because we understand that we have poor spenders in government right now. And so we will have a difficult time when we just begin, because we are going to have to clean up a lot of the mess that has been created by this current administration. However, we are the choice of the people, and so people out there are just waiting for a change of government, because they recognize that when you get a change of government with somebody like Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge as the premier of Nevis, you will see Nevis start moving forward, because she will tap into resources here and there. Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Cleone Stapleton Simmons, Rohan Isles, and myself, in order to get a lot of these things going, Mr. Manners. So that's the upgrade of the Charlestown Health Center. And when we get that health center upgraded, we need to be promoting it. There are a lot of things right now, and I'll give credit. There are a lot of things right now that can happen at the health centers, but people don't know about them, or people do not take advantage because they're not comfortable in the space that they go. I remember when I used to take my daughter to the clinic at the health center, and I thought that the nurses really did the best that they could with the situation that they had. But whereas I wanted to talk to the nurse for a while and explain, I'm a young mother, I wanted to know, how does this work, that kind of thing. I didn't have that, because there wasn't that level of privacy, in my opinion, because there was so many of us coming. They just needed to get us in, make sure the children are okay, and get us out so that we can get to our jobs. And so there is room for a lot more to happen at the health centers, and for people to take advantage of what can be offered and what is offered there. But because of how it is set up, people don't really want to. And so once we upgrade it, there will be better promotion of the health centers and the services offered within the health centers, because a lot of the things we go to the Alexandra Hospital for really can be done and really should be done at the health center level, Mr. Manners. And so that is one of the things that we want to see. Man, upgrade the thing. This Nevis is nice. We say Nevis is nice. We have to really show that Nevis is nice. So that's just a snapshot of what we want to do in healthcare. Because, Mr. Manners, we already know that the Alexandra Hospital is in a dire state right now, and we need to get it to a certain level. It's not going to be perfect, but I believe in order to work on the Alexandra Hospital, we got to work at the health center, work on the health centers. Let people go to the health centers for some of these things and save the hospital for the more important things. And it's going to take some time. It's going to happen in stages, but it will happen under the Nevis Reformation Party, Mr. Manners. So far, I've told you about my plans in education and training, some of them rather, my plans in social and community development, my plans for housing and infrastructural development, just some, my plans in healthcare, Mr. Manners. What haven't I spoken about? Sports, Mr. Manners.
Well, before you go to that, though, you didn't pay much attention to the hospital, and that is the Achilles heel of this administration. Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge has spoken time and time again about the piecemeal approach. So they're putting things in containers in the yard. We've got a caller, though. Oh, the caller has gone away. Okay. Please call back. That has been scandalous almost, what's happening at the hospital. We're almost at the end of the year. It's gone off the radar. They don't discuss it anymore. We've got to get that up to speed. Anyway, our caller is back. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Your Voice with the NRP.
Good evening, Mr. Manners, and good evening to your guest, Ms. J.D. Kane.
Good evening.
I've been listening to the program from the start, and as Ms. Kane just mentioned, the Alexandra Hospital, I wanted to add my opinion on this, because Mr. Manners, is a very serious matter. It's a very, very, very serious matter. And I think some people, for whatever reason, have been taking it for granted. The truth, or the fact of the matter is, we have a serious problem on our hands, the Alexandra Hospital. And some people, it appears as if, they're trying to turn a blind eye to what is going on up there. And it does not matter where you stand, whether you are NRP or CCM or neutral or whatever. The Alexandra Hospital is in a bad state. And it's been nearly 5 years or more than 5 years since the government has been attempting to get it done. And, time after time, month after month, we keep hearing that works are progressing and things are happening and this is coming in and that is coming in, and it's getting to the point where, man, it's frustrating. It's really, really, really frustrating. And, people really need to understand what is going on at the hospital. And what is going on, Mr. Manners, is that nothing is going on, because you can't keep coming back to tell us month after month that works are progressing, and then when you really look at it, nothing much is happening. But it's a total disaster. It was a mess from the beginning, and it appears as if nobody wants to take responsibility for the mess and the monies that have been wasted, the taxpayers' monies, that is, Mr. Manners. It's a very serious issue.
It's very serious.
And it is one that we have to talk about, whether you like it or not. And I don't care where you stand, NRP, CCM, it's a very, very serious matter. Thank you, and I'll continue to listen.
Thank you very much. Somebody said to me last week, why are they painting the hospital? Isn't painting something you do when you're nearing the end of a project?
Optics.
I said it's all about the optics. This is a cosmetic government.
Yes, correct, Mr. Manners. And before I forget, Von Radio and M&M, I'm going to tell you now. Someone sent me a message to tell you that see if you could find a different color telephone icon that comes up on the screen, because they're very serious this election. And so when there's a caller and they're looking on screen, because remember some persons are viewing online, they want to see the green, because everything they see right now is green. So I'm just sharing the message as I receive it. You know I'm not lying, because you see me looking down in my phone and I was reading the message. But that was a light moment. Mr. Manners, you know, I didn't speak about the expansion project because, you know, some persons have asked, is the NRP going to finish the hospital? Listen, we cannot leave the hospital as it is. We cannot leave the hospital as it is. However, bear in mind, we must do an assessment of where we are. We have to do an assessment of where we are so that we can know where we should be going. Because what we have been told, Mr. Manners, is that time and time again, the administration has had to make changes to what exists at the Alexandra Hospital because they did not follow the guidelines and recommendations of the experts in the field. I may feel that I know a little bit about health care, but how dare I think I know more about healthcare than somebody who has worked in the field for a long time, somebody who's trained in the field. You understand what I'm saying, Mr. Manners? And so that is the situation that we are in. And to be honest, we shouldn't in 2022 be celebrating getting a CT scan machine, because that is a basic thing in 2022, Mr. Manners. Your hospital shouldn't be functioning without one. I don't understand. And it's not a matter of being ungrateful. It is the reality. That is something that we should have, Mr. Manners, as it is. We have persons warded at the Alexandra Hospital, warded, who have to get up, take the ambulance, go to St. Kitts, go to the hospital down there, do a CT scan. You have to pay for all of this up front. You can't be billed after knowing that you're warded at the Alexandra Hospital, which in my opinion is nonsense. But you have to go through all of this. I know, because I've experienced this firsthand dealing with loved ones. And then you come back to the Alexandra Hospital. I mean, Mr. Manners, in 2022, that is where we are. And somebody wants us to throw a party and celebrate getting a CT scan machine, which is basic. Come on, Mr. Manners. I am not rewarding. I am not celebrating. I am not recognizing bare minimum mediocrity. No. We deserve more, and it is time for us to demand more. Mr. Manners, I didn't mention this one because it kind of goes out of my constituency, but Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge mentioned it at the last town hall, and I agree with her 100% that we really shouldn't be having just an ambulance at the Alexandra Hospital, when if there is an emergency, that ambulance has to leave there, go to, let's say, another part of the island, and then come back. You know, we are losing time. And so we really need to have something in place where there's an ambulance situated in another constituency, another part of the island, making it easier and making it more accessible for all of our people.
Well,
Mr.
you know,
Manners.
CCM is following the NRP playbook.
That's okay.
The Honorable Alexis Jeffers, sitting in for the Premier last week, said they're going to do a polyclinic somewhere over in St. James.
They said they were going to do. They said they were going to do a dog farm. They said they were going to do the.
All they're doing is following the leader.
Okay, and that's good. That's
We've
good.
got 10 minutes though, JD, and I know you wanted to go to sports. And
Yes.
show some
So
other
let me get to that. For sports, again, quickly, I'll just talk about some of the things that we want to do. And I'm saying in Charlestown, we got to upgrade our sporting facilities. We want, as Rohan Isles likes to say,
Another caller, JD Keynes. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Mr. Manners, it's me again.
That's okay.
And JD.
Good
I was looking at something today showing the hospital, a picture of the front of the hospital. And I was appalled because I really haven't been there in a while to see these big containers in the front of the hospital. Now, my understanding is that's where the CT scan is supposed to go. But I asked myself, why? Why are they sitting there? It looks to me like the storage area of a big operation in the front of a hospital yard. And the question I have is, in an emergency situation, God forbid, where do the ambulances and persons who may be rushing to the hospital because of this emergency situation, where do they park? How do they navigate in the hospital parking area? Or just persons who go there to get their treatment or whatever? Those containers that are sitting there, is there a CT scan machine in them?
I know I heard a CT scan was supposed to arrive and may have arrived.
Yes, and the platform in the parking lot has been designated for it to be mounted. That is the understanding that I have. But I totally get what the caller is saying. It just shows that we don't have a plan, because imagine you are expanding the hospital. You are expanding the hospital. You have spent insurmountable sums to expand the hospital, and you have to come now and set up shop outside of the hospital. I never hear more craziness. You are expanding the hospital, and it hasn't gotten to the point where you can even use a room there for this. You have to come now outside of the hospital to set up shop. It just shows that you're making things up as you go. This is not well thought out. You didn't plan this out, and I have a problem with that, Mr. Manners. And it is because of our vindictive ways why we are in the situation that we are in on the island of Nevis as it relates to healthcare. Because every time I think about persons, every time I think about persons who have to almost every day go to St. Kitts for dialysis treatment, I get annoyed, because when we look at like today, when it's rainy and some of the boats may decide that they are not running, do we stop to consider what this can do for dialysis patients? I know people who are suffering from renal failure, from kidney failure, and they have to undergo dialysis. And it pains me to know that this is what they have to go through. Mr. Manners, when you go to St. Kitts, as a normal, healthy person, you're tired. You are drained. You just want to sleep for hours after. Imagine people who also have to travel to St. Kitts, do that commute, and then you have to undergo your dialysis. It's a lot. And we could have been in a situation where you go right there, you drive for a couple of minutes, you go right to your hospital on your island and get your treatment, and then you go back home. If these things don't anger you, if these things don't make you want to vote out this government and vote in a new one, I don't know what will, Mr. Manners. As I was talking about sports, Mr. Manners, we want to upgrade our sporting facilities in Charlestown, and not just upgrade them for upgrading them's sake. We want to make them fit for purpose, as Rohan Isles likes to say. My constituency has produced cricketers, test cricketers, Mr. Manners, and it is a shame when you look at the main cricket facility on the island of Nevis, the state that it is in, and to think that it is named after such a legend, in Mr. El Camido Willett. It's an insult, Mr. Manners. And so we have to upgrade our sporting facilities. One, to show some respect to the legend, Mr. Willett, but also to ensure that we can produce other El Camido Willets, other Stuart Williams, other Kyle Tuckett, other Runako Morton. Did I miss anybody? Keith Atherton, Mr. Manners. And so that will come if we upgrade our sporting facilities. We also have some smaller areas that can really be developed. Do you know that to this day, the Villa grounds, accessible, a lot of things happen there, to this day does not have bathroom facilities? To this day, there are no bathroom facilities at the Villa grounds. Nice place, very easily accessible, no bathrooms at the Villa grounds, Mr. Manners. We are not doing things fit for purpose on the island of Nevis. And as far as I see, everything happens in ETW Park except cricket. We have shows there, we have fairs there, we have all kind of things there.
The Spanish play baseball there.
Everything happens except what it was intended for. And so I am saying, no, It is not everybody who wants to go in a particular field. There may be some persons out there who want to go further in cricket, in football, in whatever it is, and we have to ensure that the sporting facilities are fit for purpose, Mr. Manners. And so that includes that little play field above the Charleston Primary School. It has a lot of potential. We need bathrooms, we need seating, we need to ensure that we have the people in place to train the children. When these children and young people are occupied in sports, they don't have time to be getting into delinquent behavior, Mr. Manners. And they also learn discipline, because when you have to do sports, you have to be disciplined, Mr. Manners. And that is what we want. It's all about the ripple effect with these programs that I'm talking about. So, Mr. Manners, that's just a snapshot of some of the things I want to do in the constituency of Nevis 1. And as we get closer to the election, I will expound on them. I will share some others. It's a lot, but it only looks like a lot because the current administration has done so little. That is why it looks like it's so much. Many of these are basic things that can be done within the first 100 days, Mr. Manners. Some of them take a little bit more time, some of them take a little bit more effort and a little bit more resources, because bear in mind we have 5 constituencies to look out for, and we are not going to do like some have done and only look out for constituencies where we've been successful. We want to ensure that all the constituencies are well taken care of, and we won't just focus on a constituency because we want to prove something politically. That's not what we are about. And so I understand that it's not going to be right away for some of these things, because Rohan already said, listen, let me tell you something, the first thing I'm going to put on the table is this program for Gingerland, and Cleone has her ideas, and Dr. Daniel Hodge and Dr. Bartlett. I mean, everybody has their ideas. But we will work together to ensure that ultimately the people of Nevis benefit, and the people of Nevis 1 can rest assured that they have a fighter. They will have a fighter in government and in parliament, because I promised you gains. I promise you gains if you vote for Keynes. Mr. Manners, as I wind on in the last few minutes, I just want to remind you why we need change. Mr. Manners, we need change because the current administration has failed us. We need change because the current representative has proven that is a knockoff brand, not a name brand. And we believe in the capital, we want name brand. We want top class. We want gains and we want Keynes. Mr. Manners, we need change because we need representation that is going to be upfront and that's going to be honest. Not representation that's going to have secret deals that you only find out when there's a press conference. We need representation in Nevis 1 that's going to fight for us, and not just for the people who we think voted for us. We need representation in Nevis 1 that is ever present, and that is one of the reasons why I've committed to a constituency day where I am not going to the office. I'm going to my constituency to be involved with my people and help the people there, and that is separate and apart from the you drop it in the constituency to help here and help there. I'm talking about a day dedicated to constituency work. So we need change. We need change, and that can only happen when we go to the polls, Mr. Manners. And I am encouraging all under my voice and all who have influence to tell your people, rally your troops to vote for the Nevis Reformation Party. And in number 1, ensure it is J.D. Keynes, Mr. Manners.
J.D., the greatest snapshot I've heard in a long, long time. You're number 1 in number 1. We're out of time. We're at the top of the hour.
Yes.
Hope you enjoyed our show. Make sure you're here next Monday. We're here every Monday. We're rolling towards the next local election. Change must come.
Change must
we
come.
We deserve better.
Yes.
Good night.
Thank you very much for tuning in.
Your voice, your voice, your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stevenson Manners and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the